What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, Nick, we're talking Canelo Triple G. The trilogy has come to a conclusion. Canelo won a pretty decisive victory. Honestly, in my opinion, it was a little bit more of a spread than the scorecards actually reflected in the end of the fight. What did you make of Canelo's performance?
Well, I thought this was fun. I think the sport of boxing needed this one, and I was excited to see a true trilogy, true grudge match take place in boxing. It feels like about once a quarter we get hit with a really big card and a really big fight night that feels good from the world of boxing. And to see Triple G back in action was just really cool. I think this chapter is officially done. It was fun while it lasted, and I think that Triple G kind of looked like Lomachenko in some ways when he fought Teofimo Lopez. He just didn't get going early enough, and towards the end of the fight, it really looked like he was starting to turn around. Maybe if there were 15 rounds like there used to be back in the day, we might have seen something change, but Canelo did what he had to do to get his hand raised.
Yeah, it certainly looked like Triple G has taken a step back as far as his speed goes. His chin is still as granite as it ever was. The guy can take a punch like almost nobody else in boxing, but as the fight went along, kind of in that second, third, fourth round, it was really apparent how much faster, crisper, and powerful Canelo was than Triple G, and it's even more pronounced now that he's 40 years old. So I think for Triple G, it's going to be really important that he go back down to 160. He did say that he wants to continue fighting. He does have 3 belts at 160 pounds, but at the size he was last night, 168 pounds, I don't think he's going to be able to hang with the power punchers up there. So as far as his future is concerned, I think maybe he can go back down and defend the belts 1 or 2 times at 160 pounds, but then I think it's probably time to call it a day. I was happy to see the trilogy get rounded out. I did think Triple G won the first fight, so to have it go to an actual trilogy was nice to see. The question is, did Canelo do enough to really make us say that officially he's back? Coming off that loss against Bivol, a lot of people were hoping for a more emphatic performance where he finished Triple G, something that he was unable to do in the first 2 fights. That did not happen. In your opinion, did Canelo do enough to prove to us that he's back and as good as ever?
Well, I don't want to say for certain that was his highlight premier performance that he's put on in recent history, but Canelo did what he had to do to get his hand raised. And not to say that he wasn't looking for the finish, because those early rounds, especially 2 through about 5 and 6, he was absolutely looking for the finish and trying to take Triple G's head off. That guy's just got a chin of steel, and you're not going to put him away. So once Canelo realized that, I believe him and his corner started just saying, look, we're going to go all 12 rounds with this guy. We're not going to get him out. We're probably going to get a big flurry towards the end of the fight, but you just got to weather that storm and make sure you do what you have to do to get the 6 or more rounds in your favor. And I think that's what he did. But I have to say it was an exciting fight. I mean, some people might go, it wasn't the most exciting. We didn't see any knockdowns. We didn't see really anybody get wobbled except for Canelo one time. And I think part of that has to do with Triple G just being so durable. I mean, he got hit so many times flush that you would think he'd been wobbled, but he just seems to brush those off and move right forward. So I think the fans got a good fight. Maybe in hindsight, they're going to realize that it was better than they thought it was as it was happening. But, Canelo realized halfway through the fight that he wasn't going to knock him out. So he had to do what he had to do to get his hand raised. And I think it was a smart game plan from him and his team.
Yeah, I don't think you can judge Canelo's power on Triple G's chin and his ability to take a shot, because Canelo was throwing with some serious power. And I was very impressed with his hand speed last night. He was throwing this sort of lead front hook followed up by a 2, and it was very crisp, very fast. And some of those shots were landing flush. If it were somebody less tough than Triple G, they would have been picking themselves up off the canvas. And that kind of segues into my last question that I have for you, which is, did Canelo show us enough last night against a 40-year-old Triple G to say, yes, he's ready to go and avenge his loss against Dimitri Bivol? Or should he really point his sights in a different direction, perhaps one of the Charlo brothers or somebody that would be a little bit, on paper, more of an easy fight for him?
Well, you'd like to see him get a finish against an older veteran like Triple G, especially when he wants to jump right back into the deep waters against a guy that just beat him and straight up outclassed him, but also outsized and outpowered him. I think that Canelo is obviously one of those guys that can make the adjustments that need to be made to win a fight and win a rematch. But Bivol is so big. He's so good at how he fights. His game plan is pretty flawless, and it works well against a Mexican-style fighter like Canelo, even though Canelo's defense has really come on over the past few years, and he's become one of the slickest defensive fighters that's living in boxing right now. I think that Bivol might just be a little bit too much for him. And who knows, with Ramirez in there, he's another long body. This fight's going to be completely different between him and Bivol than it was with Canelo. And while I don't want to say Canelo has some tune-up fights that he could go take while he was sitting at 160, 168, I think there are good matchups there with some relatively big names that he could go in and, figure out his size and his style and everything like that to get ready for a Bivol. Maybe even meet some guys like a Charlo brother that slightly taller, slightly longer, and try to use their range to emulate what a Bivol might try to do with him. And I just think that maybe that's the better plan of action for Canelo, is moving forward, sit at 160, 168 for a little while longer before you decide to jump back up with the big boys. And who knows, with Bivol right there, he could take a win over Ramirez and then say he wants to go up and try to challenge a better Biev or somebody like that, which could leave Canelo on ice as far as moving up goes. But the world's his oyster. I would never doubt a man who's only lost to Bivol, who's an absolute savage, and Floyd Mayweather. So I think what we're going to see from Canelo's future career is still very promising.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. As a Canelo fan, I don't believe that he showed me enough last night to say that he can get back in there and defeat Dimitri Bivol. I think Bivol is also going to be better than he was the first time he fought Canelo when he does step in the ring with him again. Gilberto Ramirez is a very, very good fighter. He's a very tall, long fighter. As you said, that'll be a totally different fight than the Canelo fight was. So it'll be interesting to see if he can get past Ramirez. My early money is that he can. But I would rather see Canelo at 168 for a couple of fights. I do like that Charlo matchup. There's some other fun fights that you could have at 160, 168. But I think 168 is kind of going to be his home unless he's up trying to challenge himself at 175, which, a lot of people were quick to hate on Canelo for that loss against Bivol. But in reality, most boxers stay in their weight class and avoid bigger, stronger fighters like the plague. So credit to Canelo for doing that. He's the biggest name in boxing, maybe that's not named Tyson Fury, and he's always trying to challenge himself. So that is why, win or lose, I am a fan of Canelo Alvarez. But credit to Triple G. He had an amazing career, and if he continues, I'll watch everything he does. To get in there in 40 and do what he did last night is very impressive, and I can't wait to see what both of these great fighters do now that the trilogy has come to a conclusion.
Me either. And I think that moving forward, if Canelo does decide to go up, maybe he takes a fight against a top 10 at 175 or, light heavyweight, and just sees how he does against not the champion there, but somebody who is slightly larger and more powerful than he's used to. And if not, maybe he'll have to find somebody that he can pull some good feud-style fighting with that can create these star-studded events that Canelo has been giving us for the past several years. Because after last night, you realize he is still a megastar in the sport of boxing, and the sport of boxing needs Canelo.
No doubt about it. Guys, thanks for watching the video. If you're new here, we talk all things combat sports. That's boxing, MMA, anything in that realm we talk about. We appreciate a subscribe to the channel, a like on this video, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.